Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I'm the Grim Reader, Kathy Grimm, here to give you a bit of a casual, per usual, update on books that I've finished. And the reason why I say casual is when you read big books like The Idiot, which granted I mainly listen to, but I would dip in quite a lot and I just started reading the introduction. They need to marinate, or, they're kind of like stay with you perhaps even for a lifetime, because there's just so much in here to think about. And so that's what I mean by casual, preliminary, and all that good stuff. It's a work that you can come back to again and again. And so let me just start. It's extremely interesting. Excuse me. So we follow this person, Mishkin, Prince Mishkin, and the core of the whole novel is the fact that he is a supremely sort of transcendently good, open, kind person. It's sort of innately, he's always completely honest and completely open, to the point of it being something that sets him aside from everyone else in this novel, and I think the point is in society. So it's sort of like a thought. It's a mind game of what happens if you insert someone who is Jesus-like, and there's a reference to this picture specifically in the novel, into the very chaotic, but just the way life is of 19th century Russia. And then he, as people have said, and I started reading the introduction, so one thing about Dostoevsky is he also suffered from epilepsy, which is what Mishkin suffers from. And so having this illness is part of what sets him aside. And he uses it as a way to explain part of some of the things that he will not participate in. Like he says he can't get married, which is an interesting topic, because the novel does involve him becoming attached somewhat, at least, in a mind meld type way, to two very interesting women, but not in the sort of usual courting and wanting to get married way. Although it's as if everything he encounters, his reaction is so beyond the normal, that sort of issues to do with courting or marrying or all that sort of soap opera stuff kind of become less important, or sort of sink down to sort of the banal, which is interesting. And I think that it is a fascinating mind game to insert someone who's so transcendently good into the normal, not so good world, and see how they manage. And I think one of the things you take away is they don't really manage. They cannot manage, and it's not their fault. And I think that is a bit of there's parallels or analogies to the modern predicament. I'm thinking of my own, sorry to be so personal again, issues in therapy specifically. One thing that came up was actually in both of them, having to deal with institutions that in the end, their propaganda, so for lack of a better term, is one way, sort of in a humanistic, we will help you, but what they actually do is basically inhuman, or not caring, uncaring, and they can't live up to the moral precepts that they seem to spout. And that happens I think in a way that's one of the issues with us generally, perhaps with capitalism, I'm not sure. But no, any kind of political structure that gets us, it's sort of hypocrisy can creep in. And so the question is, how does one live in such a world? It's as if, not that we're all good like Mishkin, but we all have to kind of arrange ourselves with these difficulties in terms of, and what's going on in the world right now. It's just blatant how much it's jaw-dropping how every day you're kind of confronted with these complexities, and you just have to kind of keep going some way. I don't know if this is that related to it here, but I'm making connections. And so the novel's really interesting. It is extremely centered around scenes of discussion and talking. So it's very, as I said once, it's a very talky novel, which and it takes a while to sort of figure out its greatness, but there are just scenes that just stay with you so much, and preoccupations of the characters. And I remember there's one scene, I don't want to get into too much of the specifics, I don't remember. It's the young person who's suffering, Hippolyte, he's suffering from illness too. And he has this long letter that he writes, and it's just a kind of almost an aside. But within the letter, there's this creature that is in their room, and it's like a scorpion or something. And I think it's a figment of his imagination. But the way it's described, it reminds me of the Metamorphosis. It reminds me of Kafka. So you see how we can really quite clearly see the 19th century realist novel pointing towards the modernist, and perhaps more with Dostoevsky than with Tolstoy even though in terms of actual reading enjoyment, I think Tolstoy, at least for me, wins, or even Dickens. I'm not sure about that. Dostoevsky's more like you think about stuff more than you actually enjoy the book. I mean, not to say I didn't enjoy it, but it's so talky. And then I remember at the end, Mishkin goes on this, and I think it's because he's getting ill. He goes on a long, they speechify, the speechifying in here. And it can get a little bit like, okay, this is a speech. And he has this long diatribe against Catholicism, which seems to come out of nowhere and doesn't quite fit with his sort of open, so that's why I'm kind of figuring out that one. So this is another example of there's all these things you have to think about. It gives you a lot to think about. And it's so different from someone like, I mean, it isn't different from Trollope. I mean, he gives you stuff to think about, but it's more at the level of daily interaction. So it's more kind of and embracing the banal, whereas Dostoevsky is sort of on a different level, or trying to get to a different level, which means there's a sort of dichotomy with the very transcendent stuff of Mishkin, who's kind of in the ether being good, and the very kind of petty, mean, conniving goings on of the people who are in the actual world. So this is like the high and the low. I don't know if I'm explaining it well, but that seems to be something that's going on with Dostoevsky. So highly recommended, but it's not one that you can. I guess I am cautious in the way I want to approach these, but I'm fascinated. I'm really, really, really glad I read it, because stuff sticks in your head about it, and as you can see, that's happening to me too. And I just started the introduction. I always say I'll come back and talk to you again after I've read the introduction, and I never do, but maybe one day. So yeah, that's that. And I'm wondering right now if I should go on to something else or take a break. It's already 7 minutes. I'm going to experiment with the one book review again and just upload this and come back with the other book. And I guess, but at the end here, I will give you a bit of a life update just in general. Why not? Even though it's just a one book thing. Sorry, being vague. So we just finished teaching. Yesterday was my last day, and it really was strange and of course extremely happy to be done with this very, very heavy semester, this load, and still dealing with a few things I need to do. I need to finish grading. I have a final to administer, but the actual teaching has finished. I am not teaching again till I think August 22nd. And so the stretch of summer is before me and is wonderful, and is pushed me over into making lists about all the things I want to get to around the house, clean it up a bit better. It is a bit funny right now because Bill, my husband, has adopted the outside as his space. And so he's always puttering. And so I need to sometimes sort of call him in. One thing I get him to do is clean the kitchen floor, because I'm not very good at that. So a few things around the house. He's great around the house too, and he cooks and everything. So, but I feel like my area is inside, because I'm such an inside person anyway. So I want to kind of spruce it up a little bit, and as much as we can. I balk at the idea of going to IKEA and getting some new stuff. We'll see. And so yeah, that's where I'm at. This kind of the transition from being extremely busy to being less busy and able to busy myself with my own things, which this summer will mainly involve reading, but also journaling. I'm looking at all my planners here and kind of perhaps taking notes on my reading, not exactly annotating. I tend to be more of a note taker than an annotator. But yes, so that's what's going on life-wise. And I will stop it at about 10 minutes and come back with another review. I've read 2 other books, but I think I'm going to stop And there's a whole bunch of other reviews to do. Also regarding the comment, I kind of feel like that's worthy of a whole other response video, but I might just write a comment back to Vegard regarding Austrian and German stuff. I will stop it now, 10 minutes, and thank you all for watching, and I will be back fairly soon, I think. Bye!